What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the final regular season Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. We made it. And, in other sports, there's more than two people to do shows, and somehow we've only had to cancel one show. We've had to do some solo shows, but there was only one time we were both really sick at the same time. And for a full season, I think I'm gonna pat myself on the back for that, but I don't know how many shows that was. I think we did at least over 75. I would imagine, probably closer to 100.
Yeah, it'd be over 100 because the season was 26 weeks long.
Yeah.
So even if we only averaged like 4 shows a week, like we're over 100, and then there were some weeks we were doing like 5 or 6. So, yeah.
Damn. I'm in a much better place than I was at the end of last season. I was chugging like 3 energy drinks on the show. I was like 40 pounds heavier, but we made it. Still a little toxic during the winter time. I don't know. Like I'm sure DFS people go through that, right? Like you're just like, holy shit, man, I got to do this again, but you have to do it. And then you just fall into a toxic loop, but glad we got out of that. What's going on, Cliffy?
Not a whole lot. You know what helps is the weather. We've had a few nice days in a row here. Like it's nice when I go for my morning walk and it's sunny and it's just crisp in the air and it's not, cloudy and like minus 15 Celsius. Like it, that certainly does help. Matters a little bit. Yeah, not a whole lot going on. Didn't really watch hockey last night. Like I just saw the tweets about the Toronto Tampa Bay game that was basically pond hockey. Like just trying to get Kucherov his 100th assist, just trying to get Matthews his 70th goal. That pretty much tracks for the end of the regular season. But 6 games tonight. Going to be lots of line changes that we're going to have to talk about. Still technically a couple things to play for. Los Angeles and Vegas had to determine their seeding, but you and I were talking before the show that whoever finishes, behind the other, between Vegas and Los Angeles, like the winner gets Edmonton, the loser gets Dallas. and neither gets home ice. So like I'm not sure who really wins in that scenario, but we'll talk about Vegas later in the show. We'll talk about Los Angeles later in the show. Few lopsided matchups. It's our final chance to talk about San Jose and Chicago and Anaheim all over again. But a few close games, bunch of guys sitting. Interesting slate when you think about all the guys that might be in or might be out.
Yeah. I actually don't mind the slate. Yeah, I mean, we're playing for a $25 Target gift card, but that's fine. I've heard from people at DraftKings that on Saturday there will be a $10 150 max. So glad to see that back. I'm hoping 20 to 25K to first. I would imagine there would be. They've been running satellite since 1987 for this, so they're going to undersize it by at least 3 times what it should be. But yeah, let's get into this slate, and then we'll talk some playoffs, guys.
Before we do, we should probably shout out a couple good nights last night. Yellowbird took down the hip check for the 6th time this season, which is just absolutely 13th time overall for him, I think, but 6th time.
I thought it was 6th this year. I thought he meant calendar year 2020. I'm an idiot.
Oh, anyways, but yeah, he's just on an incredible run. Congrats to him. That's just unbelievable. And then you see Rerun for President in chat also had $100 takedown last night. So congrats to him. Congrats to Yellowbird. Congrats to anybody that we helped. Sorry to anybody that we didn't. But the playoffs are right around the corner. We're going to have some good contests, at least for the first round, hopefully. So lots to look forward to.
Yeah. And I had to make sure that I was still alive. When I woke up this morning, I pinched myself. Delhi Deposit Frostback had 2 straight really good goalie nights. So I'm honestly scared. So We'll break it down, but he's had 2 really good nights in a row, which is nice for him. It kind of sucks that it's when the prize pools are absolute garbage, but I have never seen someone run so bad as he did all season with his goalies.
No. It's one of those things where if you tried to pick goalies that would flame out almost every single night, you wouldn't do as poorly as he did. And it's just one of those things where the percentages went the wrong way time and time again. Like you can't like purposely be have so many poor goalie results. But big contest on Saturday, so hopefully he's catching fire at the right time.
Yeah. It's like I could have my dog randomly pick a goalie and probably outperform Frostback this season. Sorry, buddy. Holy shit. You're in a rut there for a while. All right, let's get into the slate. Seattle Kraken with a 2.7 total. Heading into Minnesota, the Mild have a 3.2. I'm going to mention the top stacks here, but the ownership's going to change. Like, it's going to change. Because Colorado 1 is more expensive than Minnesota 1, and they're getting half the ownership, but there's a good chance, and we'll talk about it, that Edmonton's going to sit half the roster. So we'll get there. Just keep it in mind when we're referencing the top stack ownership percentage. This is the run that we have right now. It's probably going to change. Minnesota 1, Kaprizov, Eriksson, Ek, Boldy, 23-1, 34.4% top 2 stack, 14.9% projected ownership. I don't know. I think obviously the top 2 stacks going to go down. I think the ownership's going to go down just because Colorado's just going to, like Cliffy was mentioning to me.
I think the top 2 stack might go up because if you take Edmonton off the slate, basically, you're taking all their potential for top 2 probability off the slate. Like you're taking a pretty big line off the board if Edmonton, it seems like, is going to sit all their guys. So
it might go up a little bit, but I think the lion's share of the top 2 is going to be absorbed by Colorado 1 facing, idiots. But we'll see. I mean, this is a better matchup on paper than it was like a month ago. Seattle's lines have been pretty bad defensively. Minnesota 1 fully correlated. The issue that I'm running into is 23,100. I just don't want to pay 23,100. It just is what it is. I'd rather play Colorado 1 here. I kind of wanted to play Colorado 1 anyway before Edmonton was sitting their guys, even if McKinnon only got 18, 19 minutes. They're just a better line. I'm fine with it in, what is it, 37 max, 40 max, whatever it is. But I don't think I'm going to prioritize that in single entry. Hartman Rossi is a bit interesting. I don't mind them as a 2-man.
They said Matt Zuccarello is coming back. So we don't know exactly what that second line is going to look like. It's going to be Rossi, Zuccarello, X, probably Johansson, but we don't really know. What seems pretty likely is that Zuccarello takes Rossi's spot on the top power play.
Yeah. Well, Rossi, Zuccarello is fine for me. I mean, if he takes Hartman's spot, that's fine. Like, I like Rossi a lot better than I like Hartman. So, and I like Zuccarello more than I like Hartman. So that's fine there. On the Seattle side, it's just a brutal. Like, I wish they were better on the power play because this is a great power play spot, but their power play is just, it is brutal. So I don't think I'm going to full stack anything here. I maybe one off of McCann, one off of Bjorkstrand, one off of Ty Cartier, whatever, Everlay. There just isn't something I want to stack here. Like, Seattle's just been bad the past month of the season. So I don't really like this game is what I'm getting at. And I'm going to look elsewhere.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit higher on Minnesota 1. You mentioned their top stacks and ownership, 32.7% top 2 stack, 13% ownership. We'll see what that looks like once we get a run without the Edmonton guys in. Again, we'll talk about Edmonton in a little bit. The reason I'm still kind of high in Minnesota is what I mentioned in the picks article. Final picks article of the season up on the site right now, stokastic.com. What a great website. We'll have one for Saturday for the first game or first day of the NHL playoffs. Not sure after that. We'll definitely let people know either on my Twitter or in the Discord. But what I mentioned in the article was Kaprizov is getting 23-28 per night in ice time over the last 10 games and has only played under 21 minutes once. They are still playing him like this is a do or die game to get into the playoffs, and it hasn't been the case for weeks now. Like, they're just, you know what I mean? Like, they're getting they're getting Nathan McKinnon levels of ice time.
Does he have like a something to hit, like a performance bonus or something that they're trying to get him?
I think John Hines just wants to keep his job. I'm only half joking about that. But yeah, they're playing so much, and they're perfectly correlated. Not that Seattle has a bad penalty kill. They've actually been fine, but being perfectly correlated on the power play matters. And that top line, 3.6 expected goals, 5.1 actual goals per 60 minutes under John Hines. We're talking like 365 minutes together. Sorry. So like they have been really, really good. Maybe something changes because it's the final game of the season and they back it off and they, give the younger guys some more ice time or something like that. But honestly, if they would have done that, if they were planning on doing that, they would have done it by now because they've been eliminated for playoffs for a couple weeks. So I kind of like Minnesota 1 here. You mentioned Seattle's, really tailed off over the last month. I wonder how much of that is just missing Vince Dunn. There's really not a lot on the blue line for puck movers after him. And the main reason is Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek and Boldy are going to go out against that Beniers-Burakovsky duo. Beniers-Burakovsky have just been bad defensively. 68 shot attempts, 31.7 shots, 2.8 expected goals against per 60. What I mentioned in the article is it's a small sample. It's only like 85 minutes with Burakovsky and Beniers, but they've all been all of Burakovsky's lines have mostly struggled defensively. So I really like Minnesota 1. We want to dip down to Minnesota 2 because it's not a great power play matchup. Like I think that's fine, but I really do like Minnesota 1 here. I really don't have interest in Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Eriksson Ek is still really expensive. Like Kaprizov one-off is completely fine. Like Boldy's fine. Like the issue I have with the price of that line is Joe Eriksson Ek. I guess like it's fine. Definitely on board for Kaprizov if they're going to give him 25 minutes tonight against Seattle, who has nothing to break up. So yeah, I'm good with that. Vancouver Canucks with a 2.8 total heading into Winnipeg. The Jets have a 3.1 total. We had these totals before it was announced that everyone's sitting. Pettersson's playing, but JT Miller, Brock Besser,
Philip Hronik, and Ian Cole.
Are sitting. And then for the Jets, it's Scheifele, Connor, Morrissey,
Adam Lowry, Brendan Dillon, Vladislav Nemesnikov.
Yeah, and somehow Cole Perfidi is still on the fourth line. With all those guys sitting, I would imagine, did they announce a goalie? Is it Hellebuck?
Yeah. No, Brossois starting, but it's Demko going for Vancouver.
Yeah, I mean, they need to get Demko to work. That's interesting, though, because I don't know what the top power play unit for Vancouver is going to be. But I would imagine Pettersson gets a couple guys. Like, I would imagine Hoglander moves up to the top unit.
I would say, yeah, I would agree. At least Hoglander.
So, like, that line might be fully correlated. At worst, it's going to be Pettersson, Hoglander against, at best, Ehlers, Monahan, Toffoli, which has been not good defensively. I mean, they've been okay. I'm looking at the wrong numbers. They've actually been pretty good. Reading is hard, but it doesn't matter. Like, Morrissey's out. I'm interested in that Pettersson line. They're cheap. They are 13,600 coming in right now. 1%. That's probably going to go up once we get a run with all these guys out. But even if it comes up to 7% or something like that, I'm still in on it. Do you gamble that Mikheyev's on the top unit? Like, I'm trying to, in my head.
I really don't think he will be. I think it'll be Pettersson, Hoglander, Garland, and then probably Joshua.
Joshua or Suter.
Yeah. But Pettersson, Hoglander, and Garland, I feel pretty sure of. Yeah.
So you can leave Mikheyev off. He's 3,200, and if you have a high upside one-off you want to put in there or something, I'm fine with Pettersson, Hoglander. I don't know. Like, this has very exhibition feel to it in this game. So, but I bet Pettersson for Hart before the season. Great bet by me. But he is playing, so you might as well play him for cheap with Hoglander in a good power play spot.
Yeah, I don't really have a ton of interest on the Winnipeg side, but you have Ehlers, Toffoli, Monahan. I wonder if all three aren't going to be on the top power play for Winnipeg, right?
Somehow Ehlers won't be, but
it's a good point. Like, because it's going to be Velarde, Monahan, and Toffoli for sure, and then Iafallo, maybe.
No, they'll probably be Ehlers. I'm just making a bonus dig.
I mean,
actually, you never know.
No, you could very well be right, because they were using Alex Iafallo at times instead of Ehlers on the power play this season, which is like. But there is a chance that Winnipeg too, Ehlers, Toffoli, Monahan is perfectly correlated here tonight. It's not really a great matchup, but taking out JT Miller and Brock Besser, like that was, other than the old Vancouver 3 with Bluger in the middle, that was their best defensive line, right? So I think there's some merit to playing Ehlers, Toffoli, and Monahan, but I would have really wanted to see Casey DeSmith start rather than Thatcher Demko. I thought they were going to start DeSmith. They're not. I'm kind of with you. I'm more on the Vancouver side here. It's not that missing Scheifele and Connor is going to change a lot. I think it's Adam Lowry more than anything, from a defensive perspective, right? Because it's Lowry's line that takes the shutdown minutes. With Brad Lambert in, he's not in the player pool, by the way, but with Brad Lambert in, I can't imagine Brad Lambert's going to go into shutdown minutes against Elias Pettersson. So they're probably going to have to send out that Toffoli, Monahan, Ehlers line without Dillon, without Morrissey. I kind of like that Pettersson-Hoglander line as well. Pettersson and Hoglander have been really good this year, 2.9 expected goals, 4 actual goals per 60 minutes. You're going to get 2 out of 3 guys on the top power play unit. The Jets PK, it's the one thing that has really struggled for them this season. So I agree with you. It's Vancouver. It's the Pettersson line for me, but I think there is merit to playing the Monahan line on Winnipeg.
2 things. Clayton said morning skate had Toffoli, Ehlers, Monahan, Velarde, Pionk on power play 1.
Yeah.
2, we just got an updated run. McDavid's still in, but we're working through Winnipeg and Van's new line is now 6.4% projected instead of 1%. So pretty good guess by me there. And yeah, they have Zuccarello on line 2. Maybe we'll get an update with the Edmonton guys if we get full clarity here. But for now, we have a partial update, so our numbers are a little bit more accurate. Let's talk about the Sharks. I don't really wanna, but we're gonna. San Jose Sharks with a 2.6 total heading into Calgary. The Flames have a 3.9 total. This bag of ass team has a 3.9 total. Sharks, worst season in NHL history. Worst team in NHL history.
Not history, but certainly is the last. They're right there with Buffalo for the last decade.
Yeah, that Buffalo team was so bad.
But
they didn't tank like this Sharks team. Well, maybe
don't forget there were some really, really, really bad expansion teams in the 1990s and the 1960s. So,
I don't remember the 60s, but our pal Larry Bikes was a teenager, so maybe he will. He's probably not watching, but get this message back to him. Interestingly enough, the Sharks top line, 18% projected ownership, 9% top 2 stack. That's out of pocket, my friends. Am I going to go into the last slate of the season and play 18% Sharks 1? No. Maybe. the Flames are so bad, but no. My interest is honestly on the Flames side. Coleman's back in the lineup. He probably slides in next to Backlund, and we'll see what goes on there. I think if I'm going to play Calgary, it's going to be the Kadri, Kuzmenko, Pospisil line. Like Pospisil, or not Pospisil, Kuzmenko and Kadri have actually played pretty well together. Got to give Kuzmenko credit where credit's due. This is an unbelievable matchup. They won't see the Sharks top line. Not that it matters. Every Sharks line is bad, but it gets worse as you go down. Although with Eklund on the top line, it is historically atrocious. But it doesn't really matter the matchup. I'm in on the Kadri Kuzmenko Pospisil line. You get a little bit of negative leverage, nothing insane. Get 2 of the 3 on the top power play unit. We'll have to see if Coleman takes Coronado's spot or Coleman takes Sharon Govich's spot. It could be Backlund, Coleman, Mangiapane. You just don't. I don't think we've gotten confirmation on that. We'll have to wait and see. But if you get a Huberdeau, Sharon Govich line, I don't mind that. But it would be the Kadri Kuzmenko Pospisil line for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. Sharon Govich has played quite a bit with Huberdeau, so I imagine he plays here tonight with Huberdeau down on the third line with probably Connors area or whatever. I don't have a lot of interest in San Jose. If you want to play the top line, go ahead. But like you said, they're 18% owned, which is obscene. Like, I'd rather just pay like an extra $1,500 or whatever it is and go play the Winnipeg Monahan line. You know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of the way it is. For me, this is about the Kadri line. I wrote up Kadri in the picks article. Like, shout out Nazem Kadri. This is probably the guy that I've rostered more than any other forward so far this season, mainly because he was underpriced, I felt, for about half the year. Obviously, 7,400. He's not underpriced, but you're right about that line. Him and Kuzmenko Pospisil, 3.5 expected goals, 4.7 actual goals per 60 minutes, and almost 125 minutes together. You're creating a lot of shots, and that's the thing. Like, yes, they're riding a bit hot by percentages, but they're also creating a ton of shots. So, like, even if they were shooting 10% instead of like 14% or whatever it is, they would still be like 25%, 30% above average by scoring. So, like, they're just really, really good. You get 2 out of the 3 on the top power play unit. The Sharks, I think, are still dead last by shots against per 60 on the penalty kill over the last 6 weeks. It's a bad penalty kill. Calgary's going to be highly owned. That's just kind of the way it is. Honestly, this is probably a situation where I would just stack all 3 guys. I know they're not perfectly correlated on the power play. Sharks don't take a ton of penalties anyway. And Pospisil's cheap enough where, like, he doesn't need a ton to help in DFS. So I really like the Kadri line. If you want to play Backlund, Coleman, Sharon Govich, I think that's okay as well. They're going to go out against the San Jose top line. The San Jose top line has legit been one of the worst defensive lines in hockey this season. I don't think that would surprise anybody. But the Kadri line just has a good sample of playing extremely well with 2 out of 3 guys on the power play unit. So Kadri line for me.
Yep. People's main event. No, this isn't the People's main event. That's the Ducks game. Edmonton Oilers with a 2.9 total heading into Colorado. The Avalanche by lock will have a 17.9 total. It's 3.6 right now. Jake, our boss, Jake Hari, made an appearance in our Discord before with a little quote that says, on Wednesday, let me read it. On Wednesday, the Oilers rested Darnell Nurse and Cody Ceci. They may look to sit Evan Bouchard and Matthias Ekholm tonight. As for the forwards, expect Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman, and possibly Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to sit if someone like Evander Kane is feeling good enough to go. They're basically sitting their top power play unit.
Plus Ekholm, which I think is kind of underrated here because he's like, I love Bouchard. Ekholm's probably their best defensive defenseman.
Oh, yeah. It's not really close. So, like, they're sitting their best defensive defenseman. They're sitting power play 1. Nothing else matters. Like, Cody Ceci, Darnell, like, obviously Darnell Nurse is going to be back in the lineup, but, like, cool. If Kane can't go, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins will be the top line center. If Kane can go and they sit Nugent-Hopkins, Ryan McLeod is probably going to be the top line center. So, like, I don't even want to even guess what the Edmonton Oilers lineups are going to be, lines are going to be, because if I'm being completely honest, I haven't paid attention to a single person in the bottom 6 on that team since I started doing this show. They're irrelevant, so I don't even know who they are. Colorado won, fully correlated. They're playing because they haven't played in a bit. They're not going to get their, 26 minutes tonight. They'll probably play 18. 17-18 as a tune-up. They're 23,600. They might score as much as they want here tonight. It could look like that Oilers Sharks game a little bit. I'm very much in on Colorado 1 at 23-6. Colorado 2 is fine. Like any of the Colorado lines are fine, to be honest with you. Like the middle 6 might actually be a better play. Like Lekin and Nichushkin Middlestat, just because they may play more than the top line here tonight. I don't know. Yeah, Fogel's been decent, but he's been in the top 6 pretty much all season. But yeah, I'll give you Fogel. I know who Connor Brown. I know the guys. I'm just being a little bit facetious. But yeah, like I like Colorado 2 here as well, Nichushkin, Lekin, and Middlestat, because like if they are up on a huge lead and they don't want to risk their guys, like you're going to see McKinnon, Rantanen, and Duran sit, and you might see some power play 2 action there. They'll probably play similar minutes to the top line. So I'm fine with Colorado 2. Colton Wood, Parisi is fine with me if you want to fit like Minnesota power play, something like that. So this is a Colorado game for me. Nothing really on Edmonton unless they put together like a Nugent Hopkins, Fogle, Henrique line or something. And even then, like there's no sample. It's just grasping at straws.
Yeah, I will say you're right about Edmonton in that I think even if McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, Bouchard, and Ekholm do sit, I think they can still put together a decent top line and one that would be cheap and much lower owned than what San Jose is offering going into Calgary, right? Like a Henrique, Nugent Hopkins, Fogle line would be about the same price as San Jose won and would probably come in at like 1/10 the ownership. And let's face, like Colorado's not been good defensively for a while now. That's one thing that we'll talk about when we're going to talk about the playoffs briefly in the second half of the show. But Colorado's not been good defensively for months now. And I don't want to chalk it up to like, oh, they're just, cruising to the playoffs. Like you don't cruise to the playoffs unless you're the Boston Bruins last year, because they've been doing this basically since January. So I think there's some merit if we get any indication of what Edmonton 1 will be. But, this game starts at 9:30 Eastern. Half the slate will be locked by then. I guess, like, if you do kind of get screwed, you still have Vegas depth. You still have Anaheim. You still have Chicago. Like, I wouldn't play Chicago, but you still have Vegas depth. You still have Los Angeles depth. You still have Anaheim on the slate that you can probably swap to a line. But I just keep an eye out for Edmonton because I'd rather play a super low owned Edmonton top line here tonight than an unbelievably high owned San Jose top line. But this is a Colorado game. Like I wrote up Jonathan Drouin in the picks article for that reason. That top line perfectly correlated on the power play. Been really good this season to the tune of 3.6 expected goals per 60 minutes. I don't think Edmonton's really going to put up much of Edmonton's playing their 5th game in 7 days, and it's a road back-to-back in Colorado, arguably the best home team in the league this season. This is lining up for like a 7-1 beatdown, right? So while I like Colorado 1 and I like Colorado 2 as well, like I think this is a perfect spot for a Colorado onslaught, right? Like Colorado 1 plus Colton plus Parisi or something like that, and then throw one of the defensemen on the blue line and be on your way. Like if you're playing on DraftKings tonight, I think a 6-man Colorado stack is very much in play. I think Colorado power play stack might be too expensive, but certainly like Colorado 1 plus Middlestat plus Colton or Parisi or whatever, plus a defenseman, or Colorado 1 plus Colorado 3. Like I just think that there are onslaught potential. There's a lot of onslaught potential here for Colorado tonight with what Edmonton's doing to their lineup.
Yep. Just to answer, we had a conversation about the slates. It sounds like the Oilers' opening game of the series is going to be Monday. So they're going to not do 3 games on Sunday. Game 1 Monday, game 2 Thursday.
Wait. So they give them 5 regular season games in 7 days to finish the season, and then 1 playoff game in 7 days to start? What?
That's a Joker laugh right there.
What the fuck are they doing?
Have to go burn 500 million just to prove a point.
Oh my god.
That's what they said. That's what the Edmonton beat writers are. Yeah, crazy. Anyway, Anaheim Ducks 2.2 total heading into Vegas. The Knights have a 3.8. Vegas, like, technically has something to play for because if they win, they play the Oilers. If they lose, they fall to the wild card 2 spot and have to play the Stars. What's important there is if you get that 3rd spot instead of the wild card spot and Nashville has an upset, you'll have home ice in the 2nd round. How important that is to some teams, no idea. Ducks called up Cutter Gauthier. If you don't know who that is, he is the guy who the Flyers dragged through the media for 24 hours, and then it came out that the Flyers didn't want to pay him. Classic Flyers. But yeah, he's going to go to the top line with Leo Carlsson and Alex Killorn. 2nd line of Vetrano, Zegras, Strome. 3rd line of Terry Lundestrom, Colangelo. Like, I know it's a 2.2 total. I don't care. We are duck slappies here. No, I probably won't full stack them. But like Gauthier, Carlson, Terry, Zegras, and Zellweger is a power play unit. How do you not get bricked up about that? Like, I know Tyler's bricked up right now, but I don't really have too much interest in the Ducks other than some one-offs because they're going to be cheap. And Gauthier's in the player pool. So if like you're jamming Colorado, I think like a one-off Gauthier is fine. A one-off Terry, one-off Carlson, something like that. This game's about Vegas for me. And I think what we need to know is if Chandler Stevenson playing. I went to go look. It said Stone and William Carrier were on the ice in no contact jerseys. Nothing about Stevenson, because why would they report on Stevenson? This is as the Haas would say, a primo power play spot. I am completely fine with power play stacking Vegas here. The issue is if Stevenson plays, it's Stevenson. If he doesn't play, it's probably going to be Carlson. So maybe you can just leave off the 4th guy and just add in the power play quarterback, and you go about your day. So you go Eichel, Marchessault, Hurdle, and then is it Theodore or Hannafin? I forget. I always forget what they're doing.
No, it's Hannafin.
Hannafin, yeah. So you just power play stack them and go about your day unless we get definitive news on Stevenson. I'm fine with that 4-man power play stack and go about your day. You want to full stack some lines, go for it. I think all 3 of them are in really good spots. So I prefer power play stack and maybe a one-off from the Ducks.
Yeah, and it's not just Chandler Stevenson too. Like, I'd like to know if Anthony Mantha is playing, because Mantha and Carlson have been pretty good together. Now, the best part of their sample has been with Pavel Dorofeev, and it looks like Dorofeev is going to be stuck next to Hurdle. But Mantha and Carlson have been pretty good. Like, that would be like one of those 3rd lines that I would think about playing here tonight, especially against Anaheim. But I think you're right about the power play. Like, this is a situation where I really want to focus on the power play. Obviously, Anaheim 4.9 minor penalties taken per game over the last 6 weeks. Vegas hasn't had a good power play basically since Mark Stone got hurt, but they have been riding hot with Noah Hannafin there. Eichel and Marchessault on the top line are also on the top power play unit. They're going to carry ownership here tonight. Top Stacks Tool has them at 19% against an 18.2% top 2 stack. I'm perfectly fine, like, just doing like an Eichel, Marchessault, Hurdle, Eichel, Marchessault, William Carlson, something like that, just to get as many power play guys as I can in the lineup, because this is a great power play spot for them. I would play, like, if we knew the 3rd line was like Carlson, Mantha, Dorofeev or something like that, that would be a 3rd line that I would have interest in. We just don't know yet. On the Anaheim side, I think I'm more interested in just one-offing guys than I am full stacking. Like it's one of those things. Like, can I really see Anaheim pulling out like a 5-1 win or something here tonight? Also mentioned in our Discord, Anaheim's been off since Saturday, which means I know they haven't spent the whole time in Vegas, but theoretically they've had 4 days to spend in Vegas. So like,
but half the team can't even do anything.
that's true. I mean, you can do anything in Vegas. Like you just have to like be able to like string words together. I'm pretty sure. So like certainly Gauthier, where he's top line, top power play at 2,500 makes a lot of sense. Like you said, if you would just want to jam in expensive Colorado or Minnesota or whatever, I wouldn't play the Zegras line. Like those guys are just bad. I think they're going to get run over here tonight. Something like Lundestrom and Terry would be kind of interesting. Assuming Troy Terry goes to the third line here, just because, the Lundestrom line has not been that bad this season, especially in the defensive end. And, Vegas's bottom six has struggled at times, especially whenever they've had Stevenson on the third line. I'd like to know if he's in. But, yeah, this is a Vegas game. Mainly the Vegas top line, but I think it's just some sort of power play stack I would have interest in.
Yeah. Lundestrom and Terry have 37 minutes together on the season. Brutal sample, but it's a short sample. So, I mean, you're not expecting great things from them anyway.
No.
Chicago Blackhawks, they 2.2 total heading into LA. Our Kings have a 3.7 total. Kings just, blowing up their lines last game of the season, just trying something out, it seems. I don't know. Maybe I'll delete it later. They're going Kempe, Kopitar, LaFerriere, that actually has a sample, and they were pretty bad, if I remember correctly. Arvidsson, Moore, Deneau, which has just been nitrous. Fiala, Lewis, Lazat for some reason, and then Byfield, Dubois, Turcotte. That's a little spicy for 10,500 if you're looking to jam in Colorado. Outside of the Dickinson line, Chicago sucks defensively, so I don't mind Byfield, Dubois, Turcotte as a filler, but if I am playing a line this game, it's going to be Arvidsson, Moore, Deneau. Like, we know they're good. We know Chicago's bad. And Dickinson's up with Bedard now.
Yeah, and that line sucks.
Yeah, so yeah, and that line sucks. It honestly does not matter who's matching up against who. Just play all the Kings. Play all the Kings, play all the Avs, play all the Knights. Yeah, like Kings have to win and then have Vegas lose, I think, or is it Vegas have at least get an overtime loss? Or
no, it's the Kings. The Kings have to win, and Vegas can't take more than a point because I think Vegas has more regulation wins.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, Dickinson's up with Bedard. That line's terrible, so it does not matter what line you like, you play him. Out on Chicago.
Yeah. Out on Chicago. Sorry, it is Los Angeles that has more regulation wins. So Vegas does need, if Los Angeles wins, Vegas needs a win here tonight in any form. Shootout, overtime wouldn't matter. Even if they lose an overtime or a shootout, Los Angeles would overtake them. Either way, no Chicago for me. That Dickinson line with Bedard's 47 shot attempts for, 61 against per 60 minutes, like they're just getting crushed. It's just the way it is. Second line's been even worse. Like the Frank Nazar line doesn't really have a samples. Can't imagine they're going to be very good long term till Nazar matures a little bit. So this is a Kings game. I wrote up Kings 3 in the picks article. Like they've been the old Kings 3, which has generated a ton of offense but not generated a ton of goals. That's just kind of the way it is with them. But they have been generating a ton of offense. This is a line that can have at least one, if not two players on it, get the shot bonus on DK, which I think is pretty important. They're at 37.8 shots per 60 minutes, which is just absolutely obscene. And against a Chicago team that just isn't very good defensively at 5-on-5, I think it's great for them. So yeah, Los Angeles 2 for me. I guess you can play Los Angeles 1, but I don't have a lot of faith that LaFerriere is going to last the whole game there. Like when I see Quentin Byfield down on the fourth line, like that screams to me Byfield's going to be on the top line like halfway through the game. So just kind of the way I look at it. Kings 2.
Yeah. Easy call there. Kings 2. Let's talk about some defensemen. Cale Makar, top of the board. I kind of worry about his minutes tonight. for 8,500, but like I'm in on playing McKinnon, so you might as well just play Makar. Weegar is in a great spot. Bouchard's probably going to be out. I think Quinn Hughes is in a sneaky spot. I wish his peripherals were better, but for 6,500, kind of priced in there. Noah Hannafin in a very good spot. That's kind of who I like in the top range. Who else you liking?
Yeah, I was thinking about block shots here tonight because I was writing up Weegar. Weegar's at 200 block shots for the season. I'm like, is he going to sell out block shots again? The last game of the season against the San Jose Sharks? I guess I hope so. Weegar's my number one.
Quinn Hughes has 54 block shots on the season for comparison.
Like Weegar would put that up in a month. You know what I mean? That's crazy. But yeah, Weegar is my number one because I do have the same minutes concern as you do with Makar. Like Makar could very well just play like 18, 19 minutes here tonight, but it is a great matchup. So I have them 1 and 2. Hannafin, Devin Taves in the mid price range. Brock Faber's kind of interesting here. I think he could get overlooked in what's really not a bad matchup at home against Seattle. For cheaper guys, Vladislav Gavrikov, I think in a great home matchup against Chicago. Olin Zellweger running that young gun top power play for Anaheim. Nick Hague, he's been getting some minutes lately as they've been backing off minutes heading towards the playoffs. So Nick Hague might get 21, 22 minutes here tonight. Riker Evans, like Seattle's power or Minnesota's penalty kill is still not very good. Like that is one thing. And Riker Evans has been playing 20 plus minutes pretty consistently. He's $3K for Seattle. Min price guys, I wrote up Vincent Desharnais. He's been averaged over 19 minutes a game over the last 5 games. And if they do sit Bouchard and Ekholm tonight, like he's going to play 19 or 20 minutes again. It seems like he's very much in line for a block bonus against Colorado. Zach Bogosian, 2,600 for Minnesota. I had Brendan Dillon at 2,800, but it's like, spin the roulette wheel for a cheap Winnipeg defenseman that you want to use, whether it's, Stanley or Sandberg or whatever. They're all in play, but I think it'd be Desharnais and Bogosian for like near min or stone min price guys that I like on DK tonight.
Yeah, so Edmonton has 4 guys who are going to be min priced with Desharnais, Kulak, Stetcher, and Broberg. But like Desharnais plays the most minutes, then Kulak plays the next, and then Stetcher and Broberg kind of play like 16. So you might as well just play Desharnais or Kulak at that point. I don't know why I just went and looked at that, but I did. Let's talk about some goalies. Dustin Wolf, 8,200. Anyone? I like Dustin Wolf. I don't know if Dustin Wolf likes where he's at, but I like Dustin Wolf. Demko kind of sticks out a little bit there, 7,600. Like Devin Cooley, like the Flames create a lot of quantity, but not a lot of quality. So I guess you could play some Cooley. I just don't like goalie ever. And this is another slate where I don't love goalie. Is there anyone else you like?
Yeah, I wrote up Brossois just because the Jets are really good defensively. No Miller and no Besser basically takes a scoring line away from Vancouver. Yeah, and I know Winnipeg's doing the same, but the Winnipeg line is bad defensively. Like their worst defensive line is the Scheifele line. So I don't think that's going to hurt Brossois a whole lot as far as shot quality or volume against or whatever goes. It's more Adam Lowry missing than anything, like I was saying earlier. Whoever starts for Los Angeles, they haven't confirmed anybody yet, but this just feels like, shutout city for the Blackhawks. Final game of the season, they're in Los Angeles. I wonder how much effort they're going to be putting in. Like he's like that's the expensive option. I don't mind. Also mentioned Joey Decord. By shot distance at 5-on-5, his average shot faced at 5-on-5 is the furthest of any goalie in the league. We know Minnesota sometimes struggle on the power play. Seattle's had a good penalty kill. Like if he just sees a ton of 5-on-5 shots from distance, I think Joey Decord at 7,400 is fine as well.
Yeah. Hopefully the young guys from the Blackhawks stopped at some Easy Street Burgers in LA. That place is out of pocket. Anyone in California been there? Let me know. Want to talk about the playoffs for a little bit here?
Hat trick pick.
Who are you looking for your hat trick pick?
I mean, I'll just say Bill Karlsson. I don't. It was going to be him or Kadri. Kadri's too chalky, so William Karlsson.
Cutter Gauthier, my friends.
Why not?
Yeah. Let's talk about the playoffs here. We have most of the matchups and odds out. The East isn't super interesting. The West is going to be an absolute gong show. I mean, they're like the Hurricanes and Islanders. The Hurricanes are minus 420 favorites. The Rangers and the Capitals. The Rangers are minus 450 favorites. And then the Panthers are minus 200 favorites against the Lightning. Bruins are minus 120 favorite against the Leafs. And then the West, you're going to have close matchups all across the board. Right now, we have the Canucks minus 155 against the Predators and the Avs minus 140 favorites against the Jets. The Western Conference is a lot more interesting to me because I don't have a clue who is coming out of that conference. Do you?
No. But it's one of those things, like once we get past the first round, that's when the Eastern Conference gets interesting, right? Like once, theoretically, if the Islanders and Capitals do both get bounced, then you're looking at a Rangers-Carolina series, and then you're looking at a, 2 out of Boston, Toronto, Florida, and Tampa Bay. And then, that's when things get really interesting. But that Metro side of the bracket in the first round, like it's one of those things where, like, if Carolina or the Rangers lose those series, that like the coach doesn't have a job the next day. Like these are about as lopsided as you'll ever see in an NHL playoff matchup, and rightfully so. I think, I say all that, and I remember back to 2010 when Montreal snuck into the playoffs in the 8th seed and were just an awful, awful team. And then Yaroslav Halak made like 44 saves a game, and they beat Washington in the first round. Those things do happen, right? Who was it? J.S. Giguère did the same thing for Colorado like 2 or 3 years later.
Giguère went nuts in that playoffs.
Yeah, so those things do happen. Like if Charlie Lindgren has like a 970 save percentage in the first round, like yes, Washington can advance. But if he's anything other than 10% above prime Tim Thomas, Washington loses. Like that's just the way it is. So I don't have a lot of interest in that Carolina Islanders series either. It's kind of the same thing where the Islanders are going to play a bunch of low event games. Like Washington, that's what Washington's been doing, is playing low event games and hope they get on the right side of the coin flip.
That's
and they have
the Rangers.
And right. And that's what the Islanders hope to do. Like, yes, Varlamov can steal a series. Like any goalie in the NHL in the playoffs can steal a series. Like that's what happens. If you're looking for a reason other than a goalie getting white hot and stealing the series, why the Islanders or Caps could win, it's like, I don't know, like the Carolina Hurricanes bus crashes or something like that. There's really, that's basically it. So I don't really think anything happens there. Like Boston Toronto is a lot more interesting, obviously.
Fun one.
Neither team has been really that good defensively, honestly. Toronto's second half of the season, middle of the road by expected goals against and actual goals against at 5-on-5, middle of the road on the penalty kill. Boston a little bit better at 5-on-5 and a little bit better on the penalty kill defensively, but not amongst the elite teams like Carolina, like Dallas, like Vancouver, and so on. So like these are two kind of middling defensive teams, but Toronto, I think, has the better offense top to bottom. I think the question is like, can Boston slow down Austin Matthews? Because Mitch Marner he has not looked good all season. John Tavares had like one good month offensively. Like William Nylander's been genuinely great, but if you can kind of shut down Matthews and leave it up to Nylander to win the series, I think that's where Boston can really get into business. So I don't know. Like I think Boston wins that series, but I also hate the Leafs. So like, it is what it is. Tampa and Florida is also pretty interesting because I think they're not evenly matched teams. Like I do think Florida is the better team, but it's also a series where if Tampa Bay's power play goes nuts for a couple games, which it can because Florida is one of the most penalized teams in the league, then Florida is kind of in trouble. But if Florida can either stay out of the box or keep a clean sheet on the PK, like I think they kind of roll Tampa Bay here.
Yeah, the interesting thing with the Leafs is like you watch their playoffs last year when they won in the first round since, the Great War of 1812, was their two best players were Ryan O'Reilly and Nyes. So like, I don't know, man. Like the Bruins haven't been great the second half of the season, like worse than the Leafs, but like
the Bruins don't really have any secondary scoring. That's the problem, is that Coyle line has been below average offensively basically all season. The power play, they just nuked their power play formation in the last week of the season because their power play has been so bad. It's been David Pastrnak and Pavel Zacha, and to a lesser extent, Dan Heinen, or they've been losing games. Like that's kind of the worrisome part for Boston. Like what I said about Matthews applies to the other way as well. Like if Toronto can shut down David Pastrnak, I don't know how Boston wins that series.
Yeah. And like, I don't know. I hope that series goes 7, just so we can, Leafs Twitter during the
either 7 games or Leafs swept in 4. Like I don't want some 6-game series. Like get that noise out of here.
Leafs Twitter during the playoffs is some of the best stuff of all time.
Oh,
and then I had some Devils fans chirping me for no reason. It wasn't even prompted. They were just attacking me on Twitter saying that the Rangers suck and they're going to get bounced in the first round just like they did last year. Here's the issue, right? The Rangers last year struggled with the Devils' speed. Like they couldn't handle the Devils' speed. The Capitals do not have that speed. So like this is a very winnable series for the Rangers. Hurricanes Islanders series, it's just going to be one of like it seems like they always play in the first round and it's just always brutal. It's always bad. I think the series that I'm looking forward to the most is whoever Edmonton plays. Just because McDavid is just playoff theater. Clayton wants to know our cup final picks.
Well, let's just kind of finish on the West like a little bit.
Go ahead.
Winnipeg and Colorado. Listen, like earlier in the show, we talked about how Colorado's been struggling defensively, and that's been a real thing. Like since the All-Star break, which is like 33 games or something like that, middle of the league by expected goals against and actual goals against at 5-on-5, and it's been getting worse over the last 6 weeks. Now, maybe they've been on cruise control for the last 6 weeks as opposed to the last 3 months, but that's a long time to kind of put it in neutral, just waiting for the playoffs. Winnipeg has been arguably, like other than Carolina, Winnipeg has probably been the best defensive team in the league from start to finish. I think you'd throw Dallas into the mix over the last 6 or 7 weeks. But from start to finish, Winnipeg's been probably the best defensive team in the league. These two teams played 3 games together against each other this season. Winnipeg was at 2.1 expected goals against per 60 in their 3 games against Colorado. They shut them down. I think Colorado only scored 4 goals, and it was like a 14-4 or something like that goal differential in Winnipeg's favor. Like, you want to talk about bad matchups? This is a bad matchup. Like, Colorado lost to Seattle, which is basically this Winnipeg team, but Winnipeg has more high-end skill, right? Like, Colorado lost to Seattle. Was it last year or the year before? No, last year. Seattle only made it last year. Lost to Seattle or went 7? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it went 7 or
went 7 and then okay, but like imagine that Seattle team, but with 2 actually good scoring lines, right? That's basically what Winnipeg is. I think it's actually really, really bad matchup style wise for the Avs. It'll be interesting to see if they can get past them. I would probably be I think I'm on the Winnipeg side in that series, but especially the goaltending, like Colorado's goaltending is like I'm not sure that Justice Annunen isn't better than Alexander Georgiev. You know what I mean? Like that's just kind of where I'm at. Vancouver and Nashville, like it's funny because like the first 30 games of the season, it was about Vancouver's offense, and I think like the last half of the season, it's been about Vancouver's defense. Like they've legitimately been one of the best defensive teams in the league, both at 5-on-5 and on the penalty kill. Thatcher Demko coming back is massive. Other than Jacob Markstrom, I don't think there's a bigger drop off from starter to backup in the league than Thatcher Demko to Casey DeSmith. So getting Demko back is just absolutely massive for the Canucks. And then you put him behind an elite defensive team. It's like having Connor Hellebuck behind that Winnipeg defense. So I think it's a pretty tough matchup for Nashville. Nashville, it's interesting because they really came alive offensively over like the last 2 months. In fact, since the All-Star break, Nashville leads the league in 5-on-5 expected goals per 60 minutes. So we're talking like over 30 games of Nashville leading the league in expected goals at 5-on-5. So if Vancouver can kind of slow them down at 5-on-5, I think they have a penalty kill to hold them off the board, especially with Demko back. That should be Vancouver. We don't know what the other series is going to look like. I assume it's Dallas and Los Angeles and Edmonton, Vegas, just by virtue of Vegas and Los Angeles play tonight, 2 easy matchups, Anaheim and Chicago. If they both win, then Vegas is going to face Edmonton. So I assume it's Edmonton, Vegas, Dallas, Los Angeles. Like, it's hard to see Los Angeles getting by the Stars. Like, since the Stars got Chris Tanev, they've legitimately been one of the best defensive teams in the league. They have probably, I'd say, the best 1 through 4 on defense of any team. And when you think about like what Colorado has with Makar and Taves and Walker and Girard, even though he's hurt right now, like, it's pretty high praise. But I think Dallas has the best has the best 1 through 4 defensemen in the league. And then you have 3 lines that are great offensively. 2 out of those 3 lines are pretty good defensively as well. So that's going to be tough for LA to break through. LA's pretty much in the spot where Washington is, where they're going to have to grind the game down, make it some coin flips, and hope the defense and goaltending holds enough to take it in 6 or 7 games. Vegas, it depends on their health, right? Like, if Mark Stone doesn't come back, I think they're in tough, man, because I don't think there isn't enough talent on the wings after Jonathan Marchessault to really make up for losing Mark Stone. Like, I like Amadio, I like Mantha, I really like Dorofeyev. They can't replace Mark Stone. And if you go into a series against, and this is the deepest Edmonton team of the McDavid tenure. Edmonton's been the number 1 team in the league since they hired their new coach. Whether you want to look at goal share, whether you want to look at points percentage, wins, whatever, number 1 team. So Vegas goes into that series shorthanded on the road. I think it's Edmonton's.
Yeah. Be a fun series regardless, because nothing makes me happier than here comes some Oiler GIFs, whatever you want to call it.
Could you imagine being an Oilers fan and you've been waiting basically like 10 years for this kind of team to be assembled around Connor McDavid, and all of a sudden you're facing a Vegas team where Vegas goes and gets Thomas Hertl and Noah Hannafin at the deadline, and then Mark Stone's activated for game 1 of the playoffs? Sorry, boys.
The West is brutal. Yeah, you're right about the Colorado-Winnipeg series. I think the key for Colorado to win is to steal a game in Winnipeg and not give it back at home.
Right.
Because going into Winnipeg is brutal.
And it's one of those things where Colorado has to somehow make Winnipeg play their game. Like, if Colorado tries to play these like low event 2-1, 3-2 games against the Jets, they're going to lose. They need to win these games like 6-3 or whatever. I just don't have a lot of faith that they can do it.
Yeah, I mean, they have to run over the Scheifele line at home if it is Scheifele, Connor Velarde. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, they have to just destroy them. Otherwise, it'll be a short series. Yeah. Because going into that third line in Winnipeg is brutal. McKinnon's matchup proof, but like, that's just a tough place to play. Yeah. I don't even know who my Cup final pick is going to be.
Off the top of my head, I'm gonna say Dallas and Carolina.
Carolina, yeah.
Yeah. I do think whoever wins the likely second round series between the Rangers and Carolina is the team that ends up in the Cup final. Sorry, I just think Carolina is better than the Rangers.
Oh, I mean, they are. Yeah. As soon as they figured out their goaltending, like, if Carolina had good goaltending at the beginning of the season, they would have had 130 points this season.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to say the Rangers just because Rangers hockey. Philip Hedl could be back. Maybe not. Like, he's been practicing, but who knows? Yeah, I think it's going to be Dallas too. Like, as soon as Ottinger figured out his game and they got Tanev, like they have offense, they have defense. They're the most complete team in the West.
The funny thing is like, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if any of the 8 teams in the West were in the final. Like, I would legit be surprised if like the Islanders or the Capitals or, you know, obviously the Leafs, even Tampa Bay to some extent made it to the finals. But like, if we get Los Angeles or if we get, you know, Winnipeg or something in the Cup final, it would probably make sense to me because I think the 8 teams in the West are 8 of like the 13 best teams in the league. Yeah. Or 8 of the 12.
Kind of sucks that the Rangers and Hurricanes would have to play in the second round. Like, the seeding and the playoff points is stupid. That should be an Eastern Conference final type deal. But I don't know. I'm just hoping the Rangers get out of the first round. I don't care they're the biggest favorite on the board. Always makes me nervous. Rangers won the President Cup, but I could see them losing this series. It's just the fan in me.
Yeah, I get it.
As long as the Leafs lose, who cares?
Exactly.
Yeah. Just wanted to say thank you all for tuning in. Another regular season in the books. You guys have supported us bigly. No, without your support, we wouldn't even be here on this show. Obviously, we had that hiccup in January where we weren't sure if we were going to be here. We went off our per show pay. We went on to affiliates. You guys have affiliated us very well. Obviously, like we say, we're here for us, but we're also very much here for you. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. And we mean that. So thank you guys for another season. We'll obviously be here for Saturday, and then we'll play it by ear with the contest. But thank you guys so much again for another great season, and we'll see you Saturday.
See you guys on Saturday.